Hello everybody and welcome to another in-depth deck building video. In this series, if you do not know, I build a deck as in-depthly as possible. I try to give my thought process behind my decisions, why I weigh certain cards over other cards, etc., to kind of showcase deck building style that is a little bit more in-depth than the ones that we normally do, where we're kind of just putting the cards in and saying, yeah, that's what I want, or of course I want this. I hope to explain why I want that and like why these cards are making it over other cards. I've been doing archetypes for these for the last few of them, and this one's no exception. We're going to be continuing the Bless and Curse going into Seeker Curse. We're going to be building a deck around the Seeker Curse cards to try to think if we can come up with something really cool to kind of use and take advantage of all these curse cards to get the job done. I'm going to choose to play with a Seeker Investigator for this series, and actually for all of this series I'm going to include an Investigator that is the class color, just because I think it's the neatest way to do this. Multiple other Investigators, like for example Luke Robinson, Trish Scarborough. If you have Seeker 02, you can really tap into this archetype, but I want to keep it on the Seeker ones here just because it keeps it nice and simple. Seeker Curse is actually very easy to tap into, and there's only a few Investigators that I wouldn't want to run Seeker Curse with, and that would probably be Minty Fan, just because the Survivor side is a little bit awkward to combat the Curse side. I'd rather have a class that supports or helps enable my Curse side, so the Survivor side is kind of a no-go. Vincent Lee is a little bit confused, I think. Norman Withers, he upgrades into Mystic, so he's not going to make the cut. I think Agatha Crane is an interesting thing because there's a lot of good insights in the curse that we can take advantage of. I've built an Amanda Sharp curse deck that was very good. Harvey Walters, mono yellow, is totally okay, and also kind of Kate Winthrop. She does have other classes, but she is kind of mono yellow. These are okay options, but again, I want to be able to find something that I can support with my off class. There's a lot of power that can come from that. Joe Diamond is probably not going to make the cut. He kind of falls into the Minty Fan plan, where the Guardian side makes it a little bit awkward. Mandy could do it really well. She taps into both Mystic and Rogue as an option, but I think the big deck size is going to make it a little bit harder to grok. Ursula Downs is also kind of like Harvey and Kate, where it's like mono yellow, but she gets access to all the relics, so she can actually play like a pretty good curse deck with the Rod of Carnimagos. But because this is a Seeker curse deck, I want to try to take advantage of the Seeker cards. So that's why she's probably not going to make the cut. And that same is ultimately true for Daisy. Daisy can make a very good curse deck, but not really where I want to be going with this. Just because, again, I feel like if I have access to Rod of Carnimagos, I'm going to go away from my goal with this, which was to make a Seeker deck that plays with the curse cards, as opposed to building around this really good... Here, let me even get it on the screen for you so you know what I'm talking about. The Rod of Carnimagos, this is a really good curse card, but I don't really want to mess around with this in this video because I think it kind of defeats the purpose of being Seeker Curse, because this is kind of Rod of Carnimagos Curse. If you want to see me build a Rod of Carnimagos deck in one of these, let me know down in the comments. So ultimately that kind of leaves Rex Murphy, not Parallel Rex Murphy, and Lucius Galloway. Also I guess Agatha Crane another option, but I think I'm going to go towards Lucius Galloway for this, mostly just because I think his Rogue 02 is going to be really nice for giving us a few options that we could take advantage of. It's also going to give us some economy, and I think that overall this is going to be a very interesting approach that we have here. I actually also have the deck started over here, so a little bit I kind of buried the lead with this one. I've already chosen Lucius, but this was my thought process that I went with all of this about. So what we need to do is we need to start by looking up all of our curse and our cursed cards that we can play here, because we need to find out the direction that we are going to take in order to kind of get things done. Seeker Curse does have some really cool payoffs on the high experience levels. There is the Cryptic Grimoire. This is the one where you can play insight events fast, but there also should be Or is the other one blessed? Yeah, the one where you can, this is the one where after you resolve one or more curse tokens during a skill test, place that many secrets on Cryptic Grimoire. When you would draw the top card of the encounter deck, spend 5 secrets and draw a card instead. This is actually something that I did in that Amanda Sharp curse deck that I mentioned earlier, and it was very good and very powerful. But because I've already talked about that deck here on this channel, I don't think I really want to kind of retread old ground. I think instead, as I mentioned, I want to try and explore some options that I think are going to be interesting in regards to Seeker side with something I haven't done. So Eye of the Djinn is when you initiate a skill test. This is a paradoxical card. It has the Bless and the Curse. So this is something we're going to hope to tap into later, or potentially even go into our Rogue one, because the Rogue one is going to be very different than these other ones, because Guardian Bless, Survivor Bless, they want to draw tokens. Seeker Curse, they want to draw tokens. Paradoxical, they want to draw the tokens. But Rogue Curse, they're kind of like, nah, man, that ain't real. They're kind of trying to nullify their effects as much as possible. So I think we're going to save that one for the other video. A good option we have here is the Prismatic Spectacles. Add a curse token to the Chaos Bag, investigate. You get +2 skill value for this investigation. If a curse token is revealed in this investigation, you may exhaust it to discover 1 additional clue at your location. This could be something we can try to take advantage of here as one of our options. And you know what? We might even pair it with one of these Cryptic Grimoires. We're going to kind of see how things go. Again, whenever I do these in-depth deck building series, I start at like 0 XP or in the thick of it. I might make some exceptions to see how things go, but I want to give you like a level 0 deck to start with, because I think like a level 0 deck having a good foundation is very important, and I can kind of give you some guidance for where things are going to go in your first upgrades. I think that approach works better for this series, but I think we need to flag a few things for our side deck that is just so I don't forget about later. So we're going to do the Prismatic Spectacles as well. Scrimshot Charm. So one thing that is very, very intriguing about Curse for the Seeker thing is that they use curse tokens kind of as a cost. Rogue has that in some spaces, as we see with Scrimshot Charm, but again, like the Rogue archetype is kind of using those to just get rid of them, or is using to exploit them in different ways. With Seeker, especially on some of the higher end cards, we're going to have a hard time wanting to get rid of these curse tokens, especially because our Blasphemous Covenant, which I'm going to cover in a few, has a conflict where it keeps the curse tokens in the bag. So we kind of have this awkward thing where we want to mitigate curse tokens to not have to have them have their negative, but we also need to remove them, which means we're going to have to not mitigate them to suffer their negative. So just something to consider here as we go a bit deeper. And it's ultimately why Scrimshot Charm probably isn't going to make the cut. We have some really good economy already in our options of both Rogue and Seeker, so I don't think we're going to really need to tap into Scrimshot Charm here to get the job done. On the ally side, Gabriel Carrillo, +1 book at the start of your turn, add a curse token, draw a card. Because this is optional, it's a very powerful ability to fill the bag up with curses when you need more and to draw more cards, or alternatively, he's fine to just give you +1 book once you're ready to replace Dr. Milan, which we probably are going to do, so I'm going to put him in the side deck. Favor of the Moon, I'm going to put that in the side deck to talk about later. Alright, here's the Blasphemous Covenant. This card is very important to our game plan. As a reaction, when Investigator location reveals a curse token during a skill test, exhaust Blasphemous Covenant, treat that token's modifier as a +1 instead of its normal modifier. After this test ends, return that token to the Chaos Bag. This is, in my mind, a must-have if you are Seeker and someone at your table is playing Curse. But joke's on them, it's probably you. This has just such a big impact in regards to mitigating some of the downsides that curse tokens have for you or other people, and still getting the effect of revealing curse tokens during the test. This, I think, is just so important. I'm going to be putting this in the level 0 deck, so we're just going to do that right now. And we're going to do the in the thick of it to get that going. With this deck, I'd probably take 2 physical, because we also have a signature weakness that's going to be dealing us horror, and we are probably going to be wanting to figure out ways to make that not be a thing, to kind of like have some horror healing in here, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. We'll worry about that like later on in the video. So Blasphemous Covenant, this is just so important. It's so crucial to your curse decks. If you are not playing this or you're not upgrading this almost immediately, rethink that. There's a great example of this when we had when I did the curse run on Quick Learner on Daniel's channel. I put this in my level 0 Amanda deck, and Daniel took a few scenarios to put the Blasphemous Covenant. I think he put it in by scenario 3, I think. I could be wrong with that, by +1, -1. But it was very noticeable in the first scenario when we were split up in the opening of Circle Undone. Not that I could have helped him because we were at different locations, but all my curse tokens were soft. I drew like 1 a turn, I turned them into a +1, and then turned it into something else. We were also trying to use those curse tokens for other things, so keeping them bag was very important. But what was more important in that level is, like, the first scenario was because we were both curse decks, we were loading curse tokens into the bag. But we wanted protection for those, and I had the Covenant and Daniel didn't, and in that first scenario, I had a much smoother ride with the curse tokens for that reason, and that carried over into the second scenario as well. So that's my own personal preference. I really like putting this in my level 0 decks, so we're going to be taking the In the Thick of It for this, just so we can have that in here and not have to stress about buying it later, and we have like our curse mitigation going right off the bat. Control Variable. We're going to put 2 copies of this in our deck. This is basically just working a hunch for curse decks. We're probably going to side out of this card later on once we get deeper into the campaign. But for all intents and purposes right now, I'm happy to include this in here to just get free clues while someone is drawing curse tokens, because that's something we're going to be wanting to do. We have Deep Knowledge and Faustian Bargain. These add curse tokens for cards and resources. These are probably going to make the cut. I'm not a big, like, I think Deep Knowledge is a good card. I'm not going to say it isn't. I think it's very, very good, bordering on great. But I have my own personal preference where I want to spend my card draw, like I want to be my card draw while I'm also winning the game. And that's just like my own hang up that is my own personal preference for this. Faustian Bargain. We're going to put this one in for sure, though. 5 resources is a hell of a drug. We also get 2 curse tokens for the pleasure. Gaze of Aurochs is something we might consider in the long term, as just as a way for us to like ping a few enemies down. If we're going to be keeping the bag loaded at 10, Gaze of Aurochs could potentially get the job done. So that is something for us to consider here. Reastrad, I don't think is going to make it in this deck just because we have only 1 fist. As you can see over here is Lucius Galloway. So it means that even if we add 3 curse tokens, we're only at 4. This can do a hell of a lot of damage, but I think it's better suited for other people. What I would do with this deck if I was building it with someone else, I would have my fighter take this card, if they could, because I think that would be really, really stellar there. Stirring Up Trouble, it discovers 2 clues by adding curse tokens in. This card has actually become more awkward to play over time because it's so much easier to keep curse tokens in the bag or add curse tokens in the bag for other value that a lot of the time you're sitting on Stirring Up Trouble and kind of just like watching it and being like, what the heck does this... Wait a minute, what does this even do? You know, like, it's just sitting here taking up space. And especially if like your whole team is leaning into curse, Stirring Up Trouble is going to not actually fire as much as you want. Because it's one of those things where like, you want to use it on high shroud locations because you're effectively cheating on investigate actions. But it's going to be hard to put 4 curse tokens into the bag. So you're just looking at this card being like, this does actually not, it doesn't actually do anything, but it works on this 2 shroud location, but that's already a location that's pretty easy. So then you weigh the options of like, yeah, but did I really put this in my deck to scum clues from low shroud locations? And the answer is probably no. I still think it's good. Like, I would never blink if someone plays it and discovers clues, but don't be surprised if you do include this card, how much it actually just doesn't do the thing that it says because the bag is already loaded with curse tokens. This is kind of the transition with the Hemlock Veil, like especially with Gabriel Carrillo and Prismatic Spectacles, Scrimshaw Charm. There's just so many ways now to just keep curse tokens flowing into the bag that it's harder for something like Stirring Up Trouble to actually trigger. I'm not going to play Tempt Fate in this deck, just because I don't need the Bless tokens, and I also don't need the Curse tokens fast. We have ways to get Curse tokens that are just better. Like, I could just fast draw a card, add 3 and 3, or I could spend an action, add 2, and draw 3, right? Like, so there's like a big difference between the two. Stygian Eye. Probably not going to frick with this card. I think that this is a payoff for other investigators. I really like it in Amanda, especially because she can cycle her deck so quickly. But I think for Lucius Galloway, we're not going to really, it's not going to move the needle for us too much. Diabolical Luck, I'm going to include 2 of these in our level 0 deck, and we're probably going to upgrade them into Fae. So Diabolical Luck is actually a very nice curse mitigation card, and it's another good tool to have at level 0 to get like some protection for the Mythos phase, or just even like for, I guess Mythos phase is the wrong word, even though drawing curse tokens during the Mythos phase really sucks. It's even during like tests that you're taking where you basically just turn a curse token into a bless token for that test. Very nice design on this card, but you'll probably side it out. Fae is what we'll side them into because it gives us less symbols, but it gives us more uses out of it and a bit more protection to kind of just make sure it triggers. I really like it as a Mythos protection card and just like general test protection, but it does do a different job than Diabolical Luck, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a priority upgrade. So now, if we look at our sideboard, the things that I tagged were Cryptic Grimoire as a way for us to potentially draw less encounter cards, Prismatic Spectacles as a way for us to add curse tokens and get clues and hopefully draw them during investigations, and Gabriel Carrillo to give us cards and curse tokens. And then lastly, Favor of the Moon for us to draw curse tokens when we want to draw curse tokens. Another interesting thing here is Esoteric Method. This is kind of like a reverse Promise of Power, and it serves a different function. Promise of Power is test protection, whether it be for yourself or someone else, to just ensure that the test passes. It's 4 wild icons, that's so many. You're adding in 1 curse tokens. Esoteric Method is actually instead curse. It's a way to add curse tokens to the bag while also advancing the game. Because you use this, you could use it to protect yourself. But alternatively, what if instead you threw it as like a Lucius Galloway, Evade, or Investigate, and you succeed by 6, and you add 6 curse tokens into the bag? That's a good way to just make sure you load the bags up with curses so you can start taking advantage of them, while also still passing the test or over-succeeding on the test to trigger many other things. That's going to be very interesting with this Cryptic Grimoire, because the level 0 version... it's very interesting. I don't think any of these are going to be our level 1. I think I know, sorry, our last level 1 card. I think I know what our level 1 card is going to be. And it's going to go back to what I talked about earlier. So, Lucius Galloway, he has this weakness, a recurring weakness that I think does a good job at slowing him down a little bit, or at least making him tech for it, called Dreams of the Flood. That's force. The first time you discover 1 or more clues during your turn, you take a horror and shuffle this back into your deck. Luckily, this card was released right around the time that, right before this guy came out, and this is a good way to kind of just nullify some of that horror that the Dreams of the Flood is going to give you, because Lucius generally, with his ability, which I haven't read because it's not really kind of what we're doing here, his ability cares about you successfully evading an enemy by 2 or more, and this can help you get there while also healing the horror that his weakness gives you. We could probably survive with just 1 of these in our deck, so I think we're going to cook with this one here. Okay, so we have to decide. I kind of want to do both. I kind of want to do the Cryptic Grimoire, specifically this version, and the Prismatic Spectacles, because they kind of work in tandem, right? This version wants us to reveal curse tokens during tests. So after you resolve 1 or more curse tokens to test, place that many secrets on it. And when you would draw the top card of the encounter deck, spend 5 secrets to draw a card from your deck instead. This card wants us to reveal curse tokens during investigations to discover additional clues. This is something with this Cryptic Grimoire that Daniel and I talked about, and I think ultimately this is going to be a weaker version of that Amanda deck that I played, but I think fundamentally it's going to be a different version of that Amanda deck that I played. But how many times does this need to trigger for it to be good? And I think the answer to that is I would like to trigger it like 3 times at least. And then if I can trigger more than that, that's like really good. Because every time you're not drawing an encounter card, you're basically killing an enemy, you're dealing with a treachery, you're just basically making the game less stressful for everyone as a group. This would actually also be very fun, and I think Daniel did this with the Eye of Ganathawa, where we basically decided, no, that card's okay to draw, we don't need to use the reaction trigger on this. However, we are going to need to support this beyond just the curse if we want to take advantage of it. So, but I do think we want to. I do think we want to do this. So I'm going to take 2 of the untranslated and put it in my deck. So now this changes things potentially with this steady-handed. Ooh, you know what? I don't know if it's worth it. I actually don't know if it's worth it. So the reason why I changed my mind very suddenly was because to translate this, you need to have 10 curse tokens in the chaos bag, and then you can discard it and you will have translated it. There's a lot of good ways to do this, but I think the best ways to do this are with either Harvey Walters or Amanda Sharp. Amanda Sharp can use the esoteric method to basically fill the bag up in 1 turn, and then do this to trigger it. Harvey Walters can do it by having just insane card draw, and like drawing through his deck to make sure he hits everything. I'd like, for example, like Harvey Walters with Test of, what's it called? Why am I blanking on this card now? Tempt Fate, with Tempt Fate. Let me get that on the screen. Like Harvey Walters with Tempt Fate is a fast action to draw 2 cards during his turn. And that's very good for getting the bag loaded in order to translate the level 0 version of this, right? Because you have to like make it work, and you need to also have it trigger on the turn that like someone doesn't take a test and ruin it. If you spend the actions to do this, to translate it, but you also need to be like winning the game at the same time. So that's why I think Harvey and Amanda are very special for this, because again, Harvey just has great card draw to like get through his deck quicker, and Amanda can use esoteric method to just fill it up. I don't think Lucius has that. I don't think Lucius has the capabilities of that, and I think that ultimately we'd be making a worse deck for ourselves if we did try to force that card in here. So I think instead we want to become kind of a token fishing deck to trigger our Prismatic Spectacles. And then we also want to see if we can, like, we can't really spend curse tokens for other means here. So I think our big thing is Prismatic Spectacles. One thing to very much keep in mind is that this is a cost. Sorry, well, I guess the Investigator is a cost. This part right here, this is a cost, which means that if we cannot add a curse token into the bag, we cannot play with our Prismatic Spectacles. Additionally, Prismatic Spectacles is not really incredible if we are not doing this second part. So we want to try to trigger this as much as possible, which is why the Favor of the Moon, I think, is going to be so clutch for this. We're going to be wanting to play these Favor of the Moons, and I think ultimately we're going to want to cycle through our deck enough that we can get there. So this could be a Harvey deck, going back to what I talked about earlier, but I think we're going to try to take advantage of the rogue side to do as much as possible here. And also I think Lucius is going to get some good value from that, so it's not really a sacrifice that we have to do that much anyway. I'm going to put in 2 copies of Deep Knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, like, I don't think the card's bad. It's just not really my preference, but I think it's going to be a very good home in this deck because once again, we want to add curse tokens, we want to draw cards, we can share the cards with other people, because with the Prismatic Spectacles, the more we hit it, the better, and the more curse tokens we can get in to then use our Favor of the Moon, which we don't really have like a great way to get back. it is something that like we just have to like we're going to be using to just only with the spectacles and basically just try to get as many clues and find tempo in other places. This probably deck would work best in 2-player, which is what I fundamentally build for the most without even thinking about it. So that's just some considerations there. What I would like to do is I actually want to take a quick look at the Innsmouth Conspiracy, because there might be a few synergy cards that we have missed that exist without having the Curse or Bless tag on them. So I'm just going to take a quick scan through. Goose is probably worth it for the side deck. After enters play, make a promise, but I also don't like making a promise. There's a lot to think about. It, and one thing I like about Goose is having the option to load the bag up, but I don't think we really need to worry about that too much here. And Breaking and Entering is just a good card, but it's not one that we're really missing. And we're not going to really worry about Skeptic just because it doesn't really actually do anything. So then I think what we want to do is just quickly also check out Feast of Hemlock Vale. But Feast of Hemlock Vale was a little bit like confused because there was a lot of different archetypes working in tandem together, and I necessarily don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, there wasn't too much there. So we also could look at Dawnstar. Ignore the modifiers of each curse token revealed during this test. For each token ignored, deal 1 damage to an enemy location. This is kind of like a good version of Gaze of Oraksh, so I'm going to put this in my side deck. Going back to Gaze of Oraksh, if we can for a second, that one's the action to do the thing. You can deal multiple damage, divided among enemies. I think ultimately the incidental damage from Dawnstar, it being fast, is probably worth the 1 experience less. It's going to be less damage, but it's going to be damage. Where Gaze of Oraksh is going to be damage because it deals, no matter what, 1. But I think that people generally would be happier playing this to deal 2, potentially even 3 to an enemy, versus the action for this, where you're also already doing something else. So I think Dawnstar is going to go on our sideboard. But as you can see, there's not too much here for the curse side until we get to the Prismatic Spectacles. So the question that we now need to ask is, how can we further facilitate this deck to be taking advantage of our curse stuff that we have here? And I think the answer to that is we just want to be able to put skills together or boost up our skills high enough that we can kind of just tank a few curse tokens as they come up while taking advantage of everything else that we have. There's no way for us to ready this because it's not a tool or a science, so we can't do fine-tuning. Alright, we're going to grab Dr. Milan. We're grabbing him for our level 0 deck because he's going to just be a good replacement, like a good placeholder for Gabriel until we level him up. I think we want to get this guy in the deck for sure. We don't necessarily always need to do this, but when we do it, it's going to be really nice. The question, again, we never really talked about Lucius' ability because it's not really like part of our big game plan here. But the question is, how much do we expect to trigger Lucius' ability? And I think the answer to that with this deck is that we're less looking to use Lucius' ability to be our game plan, but rather we're going to be able to go off on our own with our curse tokens, and if an enemy shows up, we can evade it, get a clue, and then leave it for the next guy. That's going to be probably a more successful plan here for our boy Lucius Galloway. So I think that's what I'm going to lean into here. So I'm even like debating, what I'm debating right now, it's going on my head, is like if we're going to include something like pickpocketing, the card is very good, but if we're not looking to evade enemies, how good is it going to be, right? Like if we're not looking to do that, the answer to that for level 0 is not that great. The answer for that for this version is it's probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, evade cards ever printed for Arkham. And it's hard for me to say no to it. And because of that, I think I'm going to include it. You're going to want to upgrade these It's so good. When you succeed by 2 or more, which you're looking to do, turning your evade action into like an upkeep phase is very nice. Especially if we are going to be getting rid of Dr. Milan Christopher for Gabriel. We kind of like the resources. And as I mentioned, we are going to look to cycle through our deck when we can. To try to get these Favor of the Moons popping off as much as possible. The Favor of the Moons aren't here, but they're going to be. With that in mind, I'm going to put this in the side deck. It's very boring, but if we're aiming to cycle, this is a very good card to help us do that. It's just draw 3 cards fast. This ultimately could replace the Deep Knowledge, because we're going to have other ways to put curse tokens in that ultimately we're not going to need this for the curse tokens, and we don't need like 4 sources of card draw in our deck when we have other forms of incidental card draw. So we can replace the Deep Knowledge with a Cryptic Research. Not a priority thing, but your deck will start singing when that change happens. Alright, economy. We're going to only put in 1 more economy card in the form of Burning the Midnight Oil. We have Faustian. We have Dr. Milan, which is going to turn into pickpocketing down the road. We have Faustian and Burning the Midnight Oil. That's 6 nice cards to just keep things going. Additionally, as our deck gets better, Favor of the Moon is, because we're drawing a curse token as a downside, or so they say, this gives 1 resource whenever we do it. So there's also some economy there. The first thing pays it back, and then you get like 2 extra resources from the whole thing. It's a very nice perk that this card has over Favor of the Sun. Okay, 15 cards. We're not even halfway through our deck. But everything else here should kind of just start falling into place. We're going to put in Perception in this deck. We're going to be looking at investigating more than evading. Evading is going to happen, and we could potentially include manual dexterity. But again, because we're trying to go fast, I'm kind of happy to have this to draw more. And you know what? Maybe the manual dexterity could make it. It's just really good. More card draw is really nice. Yeah, we'll put that in the side deck too. So everything's kind of forming up in the side deck here. But this is all part of the game plan, which is get the spectacles. Whether we try to seek that on the mulligan. I don't think we're going to try to like dig through our deck for it. I don't think we necessarily need to do that. We can just like draw it when it comes. Hopefully we have enough draw to do it. And then our game plan is get the Favor of the Moon down, empty the Favor of the Moon, play the next one, cycle through our deck, and like rinse and repeat. Like our goal ultimately, when all of this is said and done, is cycle through our deck every 6 turns, which is not a slow cycle. It's probably like, I would say, like a normal cycle to have. It's not like an Amanda Sharp or a Harvey Walters cycle or like a combo deck cycle where you can do it in like a turn. 2 on the high end. Well, I guess on the low end rather for that. But like 6 with the 2 Favor of the Moons gives you a pretty good rate at getting that done. One thing to keep in mind is Favor of the Moon is unique, so you can't play one to discard the other. And we don't really have a way to discard assets that at least I can think of off the top of my head. So that's something to think about. What are we replacing Favor of the Moon, Prismatic Spectacles, and Dawnstar with? Great question. These are things that I like to do while I deck build, and the thing that I do instantly before I talk about it. So I like to think of this as like, what's an accessory slot that's like good? And we have like 2 choices. I'm going to put them both in the deck. I love you, chemistry set. And we're going to kind of talk about the differences between the 2. So Lucky Cigarette Case draws more cards. Prismatic Spectacles doesn't draw cards. Prismatic Spectacles discovers additional clues. Chemistry set can discover additional clues. So as I'm comparing these, this card also can draw cards and gain resources. I think that while Chemistry set were more likely to just trigger passively, I think that Lucky Cigarette Case were more likely to just trigger passively. I think I really like the Chemistry set for the holding the place for Prismatic Spectacles, because it's probably only going to be a scenario or 2 until we put the spectacles in. Like if we get 6 XP for the first scenario, we're going to put in 2 Prismatic Spectacles and 2 Favor of the Moons. That's like our first upgrade. So this chemistry set's really only here for the first scenario. It also has some synergy with Steady-Handed, which I think is really nice. One thing we're also going to look about as we're cycling here is we kind of want to ensure that our skills draw cards or our events draw cards. And then we want to have our assets be something we can set and forget, because the more time that, like, basically if everything draws cards or everything stays in play, we get to cycle through our deck quicker, because everything that we're drawing is helping us draw cards, and everything that we're playing is helping us like draw cards with events, and then all our assets are making our deck thinner. Lucius has some problem with the Dreams of the Flood doing this, so we might consider some things to kind of mitigate that as we get a little bit deeper into this deck, because we only have 9 cards left to go, but we are at the point now where we're trying to like fill these last little spots here for reasons. I included Fae here at the sideboard as well, because it's going to replace our Diabolical Luck in the long term. Favor of the Moon and Dawnstar. Again, Dawnstar's not really a thing. We also talk about our hand slots. All right, I would like to grab Logical Reasoning. This can heal horror. The upgraded version goes frickin' nuts. It heals 2 horror for each clue you have, or discards terrors in play. I think that's going to be really nice for our good boy Lucius, so we're going to put that to just give him some more protection, especially if we are hoping on cycling as much as possible. Again, like I said, Dreams of the Flood is going to really slow down our cycle, but you can do things like get rid of it, get down very little, and then when you see it again, keep it in play until you're able to draw through, and then shuffle it back into your deck so you can kind of like mitigate it. But Lucius does have some cycling thing, like cycling protection. It's still possible, it's just going to be a little bit more awkward, but I think it's still enough to try. And like I said, 6 turns to cycle is pretty low on terms of like a degenerate cycling combo deck. So it's like that's not really like what we're like looking to like break, but it is something we're looking to be consistent, and this is just going to kind of make it a little bit less consistent, but not enough to really figure this out. What does this do? Oh, it remembers the cards I looked at. Crazy. Okay. I mean, like, control variable, I don't think becomes Favor of the Moon. We need hand slot items. I'm addicted to Magnifying Glass. It just makes it more consistent. It's so good, it's so cheap, it's so fast. Pick your poison. If you want to play something like Grim Memoir, go for it. If you want to play something else in your hand slots, go for it. I'm just playing Magnifying Glass because they just get the job done. We also can put 2 of them in play fast, and then we have 2 less assets we need to worry about in terms of when it comes to our cycle. Alright, what are we missing here? We have hand, accessory. Those are the 2 spots you want to fill. We have an ally we want to fill. Our no slots are looking good. Our events are looking good. They all have icons that we can commit for. Logical Reasoning might be the one that slows us down the most because it's 2 brain icons. Manual Dex and Perception are going to replace themselves, and we upgrade those. Pickpocketing is really good. I don't think I want to play Slip Away. Sorry, not Slip Away. Let's look at our no slots. Specifically level 0. Sneak By, is that the one? String Along. There's so many freaking card names in this. I don't think we want to do this, even though we're doing the pickpocketing. Again, it's not really our game plan. Fox Masks are probably pretty good. We can put in 2 Fox Masks, and those could, like, one could replace a Dawnstar. Favor of the Moon could become one of them. Artistic Inspiration is also really good. Okay, let me talk about these. Yeah, we're just filling out the last little bit here. So 2 Fox Masks, plus 2 book, plus 2 foot. These are the stats we're using. We leave a location with an enemy. We're looking at just like evading an enemy, getting a clue, grabbing 1 more clue, and then leaving. So that's like really easy for us to trigger. I'm going to go down to 1 Artistic Inspiration. This card is basically just like another form of our science. It also lets us like discard cards, especially if we're going to be going high on hand size with all that we're drawing, to work with our steady-handed, trigger our chemistry set, give us some mythos protection and all that. Artistic, it's just a nice one of in a lot of decks. I think that you need to either be able to take advantage of the discard, or you just have like a million cards in your hand, so you have excess. But half luckies is not a bad thing to turn your cards into. And then we have 2 cards left, and I'm going to do 2 shortcuts. Because again, I think just free movement is nice. So, what am I cutting? I think, well, we have like I went down to, we go to 1 Fox Mask for like 1 Favor of the Moon. We could do, again, we could probably go down to 1 Logical Reasoning, 1 Diabolical Luck. You don't need 2 of those for the phase. There's a lot of paths you could take here. The Favor of the Moon's the important one. Again, I would do like 1 Fox Mask, and then, I mean, 1 Logical Reasoning isn't bad. Realistically, you don't need multiple Logical Reasonings. But it's fine, at least for the first scenario, to just have that extra choice. You could go like this instead. Go to 1 Logical Reasoning, 2 Artistic Inspiration. I like that as well. It actually makes your steady-handed more likely to heal you your horror. So I think that works pretty good. You also don't need to rush Gabriel, because he actually soaks less horror than Dr. Milan. And it depends on if you want more cards or resources, how much you're using your curse tokens. You have that as well. But yeah, I would do like 1 Mask and then 1 Artistic Inspiration for the 2 Favor of the Moons, and then the chemistry set becomes the Prismatic Spectacles. And that would be this in-depth deck building Seeker Curse. Everything was coming back to using these curse tokens for the Favor of the Moon. Again, a lot of these curse decks kind of just like, they sprout and go and, you know, like bloom as they get more XP. So they're not really like great level 0 decks for these showcases. But I don't feel like building like a 29 XP deck, because it's not really like, building a standalone deck is different than building a campaign deck. So my idea is building this as a campaign deck. So again, I would drop 1 Artistic, 1 Fox Mask for 2 Favor of the Moons. And then I would drop the 2 chemistry sets for the 2 Prismatic Spectacles. And then you kind of have like a good foundation to start doing your cycle thing. You could feasibly do this exact deck in Trish. So if you don't get the Cryptic Research, which I think is really good. And Trish also competes with the Lucky Cigarette Case 3, which is very powerful. So I think this is a good showcase here of this Prismatic Spectacle idea. But yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be back next month where we're going to do a Rogue Curse deck, which is going to be very different than this. I actually don't really know. I'll have to think a bit about that one. But I do kind of like just coming in and just trying to see what works. But in the meantime, I want to thank you all for your support. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, have a good one. Thanks for watching. And as always, a GG's.